Let me ask you something. When you open YouTube right now, are you someone who shows up when the algorithm serves you something? Or are you someone who can go looking? That's not the same question. Showing up when you're served means the platform is the active party. You're receiving. Being able to go looking means you've developed the navigation capacity to move through YouTube as a system, deliberately, rather than waiting to be handed something. Now, here's the deeper version of that question. And this is the one I actually want you to hold for the full length of this video. Are you someone who does go looking? Or are you someone who can go looking? Because those two things are different. And that difference, that gap between can and does, is exactly what playlist theory 099 is designed to close. This is the prerequisite layer. This is what has to be in place before the rest of the doctrine lands with any real weight. And at the center of that prerequisite layer is one foundational move: search. Not search as an instinct, not search as the thing you do automatically when you can't find what you want. Search as a technique. Search as a learnable, drillable, deliberate method for navigating YouTube as a cybernetic ecology. That's what this video is about. We're going to move through the foundational architecture of search, built out what it actually means to treat search as technique rather than reflex. And by the end of this, you're going to have a different relationship to the way you move through the platform. Let's get into it. Take a look at your screen. That's Esoteric 1, a quick pick series. Back to the video. Before we get to search as a technique, there's a conceptual clearance we need to do first. Because there's a heuristic most people carry that will actively block them from understanding what we're building toward. When most people hear the word playlist, they think music. Spotify, a shuffle queue, a CD, songs they already know they like. That legacy definition of playlist is the first thing that has to be cleared before a YouTube playlist makes sense operationally. Here's the core distinction. A music playlist is primarily audio, and until recently almost exclusively MP3. A YouTube playlist is video first, MP4, and the shift from audio only to video adds an entire dimension of genre possibility. It's not just music. It's not just one category. It can be train footage, rain sounds, a news forecast, a piece of culture commentary around politics, a religious discussion on eschatology, social science content on therapeutic approaches to self-relation. The range is genuinely unbounded. And critically, a YouTube playlist doesn't have to be structured the same way a music playlist is. You can change the sort by date. Date added published. Date added oldest to newest. Date published newest to oldest. Most popular. Each sort order gives you a completely different perspective on the same body of content. Sort by date added, and you're looking at the playlist from the curator's perspective. You see the sequence of your own decisions. Sort by most popular, and you're looking from the consumer side. You see which content in that playlist is actually being activated by the YouTube economy at large. That's a different kind of information. Carrying the music definition into a YouTube context blocks you from seeing any of that. Because music playlists aren't designed to be sorted, they're designed to be shuffled or played in order. YouTube playlists, used correctly, are an active organizational architecture, and search is what you use to build them, which is why we have to start here. Take a look at your screen. That's Esoteric 1, a quick pick series. Back to the content. Question one, before we talk about playlists, before we talk about categories, before we talk about any of the doctrine that as an aggregator is built around, we have to talk about search. Because search is the most powerful tool in your arsenal as a content consumer. And most people are using it almost entirely by instinct, without ever treating it as a learnable technique. So what does it mean to treat search as a technique rather than an instinct? And why is getting a handle on search the foundational move that everything else in playlist theory depends on? Let's start with how YouTube actually works as a system. There are 7 distinct pillars of YouTube, 7 different mediums through which content reaches you, or through which you reach content. There's the ed, a link or a reference from somewhere else into the platform. There's the recommendation engine, the algorithm that surfaces content based on your behavior. There's the LPPV, the linguistic point plane vector, a word, a phrase, or a concept generally referred to as a search term or keyword. There's the subscription box, the sub box, which is your live feed of channels you subscribe to. There's the shorts feed. There's the library, which equals all playlists you've created and saved. And there's your watch history. 7 pillars. And what we've focused on here, what search lives inside of, is the LPPV, the linguistic point plane vector. A word, a phrase, or a concept that you translate into a searchable form to navigate the cybernetic ecology. Here's why this matters at the algorithm level. 2 of the most important things that impact your recommendation engine, your algorithm as it's commonly referred to, are your watch history and your search history. Say that again. Your watch history and your search history are 2 of the most powerful signals shaping what the algorithm gives you. Which means if you understand how to deploy those 2 vectors intentionally, you're not just receiving the algorithm, you're conditioning it. Let's talk about how. The first vector is watch history. The technique here uses what I call a Fibonacci retracement, clicking into a video and advancing to a specific point, 50% through, 75% through, 25% through, not arbitrary positions, Fibonacci retracement points, because you're signaling to the algorithm your interest in that content at a specific level that the simple click-through doesn't communicate. And here's what most people don't account for. YouTube has back-end data. They know exactly how long you actually spent in the video. So if you click into a video, scrub to 75%, and leave immediately, the algorithm registers the interaction, but it also has the actual watch duration. That interaction communicates something, but it's an impression signal, not a watch time signal. Those are different, which is where the second technique becomes important. If you have YouTube Premium, no ads means running videos uninterrupted. And what makes that possible is passive conditioning. You build a curated playlist, a playlist assembled specifically to reflect the algorithmic profile you want to build, and you load that playlist. You load that profile, and you let it run while you walk away, while you work, while you sleep, while you exercise. YouTube accumulates real continuous watch time data per video, not a click-through impression, actual watch time, video after video for the full duration. And because the videos are running uninterrupted, no ad breaks, the signal isn't contaminated. Because the playlist is curated, not random, not whatever the recommendation engine surfaces next, you're giving the algorithm intentional information. You're communicating a consumption identity. The algorithm receives the depth signal, watch time, and the breadth signal, the full range of the playlist, both at the same time. This is the difference between tapping the dial once and turning it deliberately over time. The Fibonacci retracement technique is fast and manual. It's an impression signal, and it's useful. The premium passive conditioning technique is slow and automatic. It's a watch time signal, and it's more authoritative. The curated playlist is what makes premium technique intentional rather than accidental. Without the playlist structure, you're just running background content on whatever the recommendation engine gives you next, and your algorithmic conditioning is unfocused. Playlist gives you the conditioning direction, but that's the watch history vector. Now, the second vector is the LPPV, the search history, and that's where we're going to go deep on next, because this is where the foundational work actually lives. Take a look at your screen. Esoteric 1, a quick pick series. Question number 3. A linguistic point plane vector is a specific phrase, concept, or keyword that you translate into a searchable form to navigate YouTube as a cybernetic ecology. Most people have one version of that search term, the one that feels most natural, and they stop there. But what happens when you start chopping up the syntax? When you take a macro search term and you add a modifier, remove an adverb, add quotes, add a search operator, the content landscape that comes back is genuinely different each time. So what does developing a sensory baseline for what each different search construction returns actually look like in practice? And why is that baseline something a serious content consumer needs to build deliberately? Let's go through the actual operators. There are two main ways to use YouTube search for content: advanced search parameters, operators you type directly in the search bar, and built-in search filters, the interface level tools that let you sort and filter after a search runs. We're going to start with the operators, because that's where the real leverage is. The most important YouTube search operator is quotation marks, not because it's the most complex, because it does something nothing else does. It forces an exact match. Without quotes, YouTube is doing phrase match. It's interpreting your intent and returning what it thinks you mean, which means it has latitude, which means it's making decisions for you. When you add quotes around your search term, you're telling YouTube, include the exact words I gave you in this order, nothing else. Every word inside those quotes must appear as written in the result. That's not a small distinction. That's a difference between you directing the search and the algorithm interpreting your direction. Quotes gives you precision. Phrase match gives you proximity. Those are different things. The second family of operators is Boolean logic: and, or, plus, and minus. And means include both things. Or means include any or all of them. Plus is the same as and, both items must be present. Minus is exclusion. Add a minus directly before a term to stop videos containing that term from appearing. So if I'm searching for Philip DeFranco and I don't want religion content to appear, I can use a minus to remove it from the surface. That's a real use case. The third family is temporal operators: before and after. Before, colon, and then a date. After, colon, and then a date. So if I want to see what was published about search engine optimization before January 15th of 2012, that's SEO before colon 2012-01-15. After works the same way in the opposite direction. These operators let you see what the hypergraph looked like at a specific moment in time, before a concept became common vocabulary, before a creator blew up, before a cultural moment changed the discourse. That's genuinely different content from what the algorithm surfaces by default. And then there are parentheses, which lets you group operators to control the order of the execution. The main search term sits outside the parentheses. Inside, you build the Boolean logic. So something like main concept, open parentheses, this or that, and other, close parentheses, you're specifying the outer subject, and inside, you're telling it how to handle the modifiers. Something like main concept, open parentheses, this or that, and other, close parentheses. Now, alongside operators, YouTube gives you filters, 5 categories: upload date, type, duration, features, and sort by. Upload date lets you specify this year, this month, this week, today. Type lets you specify video, channel, playlist, movie, short, live. Sort by lets you sequence results by relevance, upload date, view count, and rating. Duration lets you specify under 4 minutes, 4 to 20 minutes, or over 20 minutes. These filters are the interface level version of what operators do in the search bar. They're faster, they're less precise, but for most people, they're the accessible entry point to controlled search. Here's what this actually looks like as a sensory practice. You don't just pick your best search term and use it once. You take that LPPV and you try it in different constructions. You run it as a phrase match first, just the terms, no operators, and then you wrap it in quotes, exact match. And then you add and, or, plus to combine it with a related concept. Then you add or to broaden it. Then you add minus to exclude what you don't want. Then you add a temporal operator before or after a specific date. Each construction returns a different content landscape. Some of those returns will be obvious. Some will be surprising. The surprising ones are the point, because the surprising returns are where the unknown unknowns live. The content that didn't appear in your initial phrase match search, the creator you wouldn't have found without the modifier. The concept that crossed 2 topics you've been keeping separate. That's the kinesthetic feel we're building towards. The ability to sense, not just know intellectually, but actually feel in practice what a given search construction will return before you run it. And why does that baseline matter? Because your search terms, your LPPVs, directly condition your algorithm, not just the content you click on. The act of searching for something tells YouTube what you're looking for. The act of searching precisely with operators, with filters, with intentional syntax tells YouTube something more specific than phrase match searching ever could. The algorithm reflects that back to you in the recommendation engine over time. This is why searching by technique produces a different algorithm than searching by instinct. Not because the content changes, because the signal you're sending changes. Instinct sends a rough signal. Technique sends a precise one. That's what it means to treat search as a learnable method rather than a reflex. And that's why this is 099 work, prerequisite knowledge for Playlist Theory 101. Question number 4. The Dewey Decimal System gave libraries a navigational architecture, a structured way to understand and retrieve content and knowledge so that anyone who understood the system could find what they were looking for, without depending on a librarian to guide them every time. Search is to YouTube what the Dewey Decimal System was to the library. So what does that actually mean to understand YouTube search at the level of structural fluency? And what becomes available to you as a content consumer when you move from searching by instinct to searching by technique? Let me give you a window into what this looks like in practice by pulling up from my own recent search history. Most of what I search is channel titles, going directly to a creator by name to see what they've been putting out, content I've subscribed to previously, or creators I know are active in a topic I'm tracking. Sometimes creators, they don't have a channel, but they post because they're adjacent to other people. Or maybe they just don't have a channel. So within those searches, you can start to see the operator logic at work. An example would be on psychic energy in quotes. That's exact match because I want that specific phrase. Not every video YouTube thinks is adjacent to psychic energy. Next example is Hillary Allen and the Dark Enlightenment. That's an and operator, combining a name and a concept, looking for content that intersects both. Peak prosperity and derivatives. Same structure, a channel name, and a subject modifier. Joseph P. Farrell and religion, a creator name, plus a specific context, in quotes. Everyday AI and Claude skills. Two concepts linked with and, searching for content that addresses both in the same space. Those aren't random searches. They're all examples of LPPVs being deployed with intent. Not just a name, not just a term, a constructed search that reflects a specific consumption intent in relation to the content landscape I'm tracking. That's what structural fluency looks like in practice. The ability to read your own search history and see it as a record of intention, not just what you were curious about, but how you shaped your search to find what you actually needed. And here's the specific operator distinction that separates phrase match from something more useful. And versus or tells YouTube, return content about any or all of these things. It's the broadening operator. It widens the net. And tells YouTube, return content that includes all of these things. It's a narrowing operator. It narrows the intent. Most people don't make this distinction consciously. Most people don't know they're doing phrase match by default, which sits somewhere between or and in specificity, and adding that explicit operator completely changes what comes back. Once you develop the kinesthetic feel for the difference, for that difference, once you can sense what or returns versus what and returns versus what exact match in quotes returns, you're developing structural fluency. And what becomes available to you when you move from instinct to technique? You learn the kinesthetic awareness of what's reachable within the hypergraph. You stop being bounded by what the algorithm assumes you want. You start being able to reach what the algorithm hasn't found yet. The content that sits adjacent to what you're already consuming, but outside the filter bubble the algorithm has built around you. That's the access structural fluency opens. On your screen right now is Crypto 2, a quick pick series. Question number 5. And now we're back to the question we started with. When you imagine your YouTube interface right now, are you someone who only shows up when the algorithm serves you something? Or are you someone who goes looking? And more precisely, can you go looking? That distinction, can versus does, carries a lot of weight. There's no shame in being super served via the algorithm. At a certain point, when you've built up enough subscriptions, when you've conditioned your recommendation engine deliberately, when the subscription box is doing its job, you might not need to go out and start looking as much as you once did. I'm in that position now. I can go looking when I need to. I don't always go looking because the subscriptions and the conditioning are doing enough of the work. But the capacity is there. That capacity is what we're talking about. Because without it, without the ability to deliberately navigate the cybernetic ecology, you're entirely dependent on the system to serve you. And the system is not optimized for your cognitive interests. It's optimized for retention. Those are different things. The question isn't whether the algorithm can serve you well. In the short run, it often can. The question is what happens over time when the algorithm is making all of your discovery decisions for you. What you stop seeing, what you stop searching for, what you stop being able to name, because you've never had to articulate it. Playlist Theory 099 is the prerequisite layer because it gives you back that capacity, the ability to articulate a search intent, to translate it into an LPPV, to chop up the syntax, to add operators and filters, and to develop a sensory baseline for what different constructions return. That is the foundation. Everything else, playlists, categories, the full architecture of playlist theory depends on that foundation being in place. Where do you sit on that navigational spectrum? And what would it take to move further toward deliberate navigation? Those are the questions that Playlist Theory 99 is asking for you, not for us, but for yourself. Now, if this is the first time you're hearing about what we're building here, or if you've been following the doctrine and want to put it to work, we have a place for that. Mr. Pollock 890, that's POLIK 890, is our playlist archive channel. It's the orientation output. It's the operational output of everything we've been describing. Content aggregated, structured, and made navigable as a hypergraph reference across the topics and lanes we actively track. The easiest place to start is our Start Here playlist. That's designed as the entry point, the first structured pathway through the content for someone coming in fresh. But if you already have a sense of what you're looking for, if you know the lane, if you know the subject, if you know the category, if you have the intent, you can go directly to our posts section and browse through the playlists that are publicly available or listed there as unlisted. Our main sections are our home screen and our playlist tab. Find the one that matches where you're at, or find the one that's adjacent to where you are, and let that be the start of developing the kinesthetic feel we've been talking about this entire video. This is the doctrine in practice. This is what it looks like to treat a playlist as a path rather than a container. Go to Mr. Pollock 890. Start with Start Here or Navigate by Intent. That's the move. That's the Playlist Archive channel. We'll see you in the next one.